Tottenham have parted ways with their head coach, Igor Tudor. It was an appointment that left a lot of people scratching their heads over. It didn't seem like it was going to work out, and that is exactly how it has played out over the course of these past 6 or 7 weeks. Big up to each and every single one of you that is already in the building. Do me a massive favor, people. Smash a like on the video and also subscribe if you are new. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated from you all. And also, hit up the chat. Hit up the chat. We're mainly going to be talking Tottenham and the sacking of Igor Tudor today. But of course, if you have anything that you guys want to say, whether you're just popping in just to say hi, whether you're letting me know what you're up to as a new week and a new day beckons today, whether you're letting me know what you're up to, or whether you've got anything to contribute to the conversation, or anything that you guys want to talk about in terms of anything football related, let me know. Let me know in the chat what you guys are up to and what is happening and what you guys want to talk about today. In the chat, would really appreciate it from each and every single one of you. Hope we're all doing well. I hope we're all good on this Monday morning. But we are obviously talking about Igor Tudor today and the sacking that took place yesterday at Tottenham Hotspur. Look, the writing was seemingly on the wall, if not from the beginning, even after maybe his first game and the defeat to Arsenal. The writing was very much on the wall as far as what the sacking of Igor Tudor was all about. I, for one, still cannot believe Tottenham decided to take such a massive risk and a monumental gamble on their Premier League status by appointing this guy as their head coach. They could have gone with someone more tried and tested. They could have gone with someone with a bit more experience of the Premier League, a bit more experience of maybe a relegation battle. Instead, they took a complete and utter what's the word I'm looking for? Someone that is completely and utterly unaware, shall we say, an unknown of the Premier League, an unknown of a relegation battle, and they gave him the opportunity to try and save Tottenham. However, inevitably, it hasn't worked out that way. Big up Rodrigo's in the building. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Lovely to see you here. It was an appointment that just left a lot of people scratching their heads, didn't it? It was one of the most strangest appointments I think I've ever seen. And as it's turned out, it's one of the worst appointments I've ever seen. I still can't believe Tottenham decided to roll the dice this much on it. I'm still trying to think of why this would be, why this would have happened. I'm still trying to wonder why Spurs would hit the kamikaze button on their season the way that they did, because let's be real here, people. If Spurs had got a competent manager, they probably would be okay. Like, not okay as in firing up the table or whatever the case may be, looking for a top half finish, but okay in terms of they maintain their Premier League status and they look to go again for next season, so to speak. Big up Nems is in the building. It says, hi yourself, bro. Hope you're doing well. Lovely to have you here. Love the kit, mate. Thanks. Yeah. It's a one of them mashup kits that Liverpool had put out. I think I got it last year. So, yeah, it's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. What's that? So yeah, I'm still trying to wonder why Spurs did this. Because We could all guess it was not going to go well. I guess the opposite effect to that is maybe in another world, Igor Tudor comes in and there's an instant hit and a massive success, but we don't live in that world. So this was always seemingly doomed to fail. I just don't get it. I really, really don't get it. I don't get why you would play with fire that much, that you would risk your team being relegated in one of the most humiliating ways possible. Because let's face it, if Tottenham do go down, it will be a massive team that drops down to the Championship. The Championship would welcome them with wide open arms. They would absolutely love and adore a Tottenham going down into the second tier division of English football. It would be so embarrassing for Spurs, given their infrastructure, given the amount of money that they've got, everything. It would be a massive, massive embarrassment to Tottenham Football Club as a business, as a football club, as an institution. I just don't get why you would play with fire that much. I mean, at least Nottingham Forest, when they appointed Vitor Pereira, at least he's got experience of English football. At least he's got some level of experience of a relegation battle. This guy doesn't. This guy doesn't. From all intents and purposes, he didn't seem to do well in previous managerial jobs. I just don't get why you would risk your Premier League status and security on this. It made no sense. I'm well, thanks, and you. I'm good, thank you, bro. I'm good, thank you, and it's good to hear that you're doing well as well, my friend. Bye, says Rodrigo. Bye, bro. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by, my friend. It says Nems agrees with what I'm saying here. I just don't get it. I really, really don't get it. And now Spurs are looking for a new manager to try and battle out of this incredible relegation predicament they find themselves in. I don't get why they just didn't go for a tried and tested manager. Because here's the thing as well. Sean Dyche would have been perfect. I know he didn't do quite as well at Forest, but you now look back at some of the results that Dyche did get with Forest, and you look at the wins against Liverpool, even the win against Tottenham themselves. And you're looking at it and going, those might be very, very important wins now come the end of the season. Those might be the reasons as to why Forest managed to stay up. Dyche probably would have got you some good points between now and the end of the season, or even when Tudor took over, till the end of the season, in order for Spurs to maintain their Premier League status. It seemed like it's a bit of a no-brainer. And there still could be Sean Dyche, by the way. There is talk now that maybe they are turning their attention towards Sean Dyche. Although, having said that, Fabrizio Romano has said that Roberto De Zerbi is reportedly the move that Spurs want to make. There's a lot to discuss when it comes to Roberto De Zerbi that I'll leave for a little later. But De Zerbi, Dyche, at least they've got experience in the Premier League. So I guess Spurs are moving in the right direction with that. I'm just still struggling to understand what the hell's gone on at Spurs. I questioned earlier on in the season whether or not going down to the Championship would, if there's some sort of bigger picture that I'm not seeing here, whether or not they're they're tanking their season to go down to the Championship in order to get something that they wouldn't get in the Premier League and build up that way. I just don't get why they do that. I don't get the appointment of Igor Tudor. And let's be real here, people, as well. This announcement would have came much sooner. Much sooner, of course, in the international break. Had it not been for the unfortunate passing of his father. So, obviously, we wish him we wish him our deepest condolences, and we hope that obviously he's doing okay. But the reason why this came about yesterday rather than earlier on in the week was, of course, due to the passing of his dad. We hope he's okay. We hope that everything is okay with him and everything. But this had the writing on the wall for ages. This definitely had the writing on the wall for a long, long time. And it goes down from everything, from the club appointing him to what he was saying in press conferences about how he looks at the club, he looks at the squad, and they're heading in the right direction. Of course, interim managers lie. We know that because they're there to do a job. So they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that a team is improving constantly or has the good morale to kind of fight the battle that they're fighting. We know that they lie, but there's too much of a lie. They got absolutely destroyed by Arsenal. They didn't win a game from the beginning right the way through to the end. Conveniently, the only point they managed to pick up in that time was against Liverpool. Of course it was. Of course it was with the way our season's gone. But they didn't win a game at all in the Premier League. They only won one game, and that was against Atletico Madrid in the second leg of the Champions League, in which they were already out, by the way. There was no way that they were going to overturn the massive deficit that they had to overturn in the second leg from the first leg. It was a complete shambles from start to finish. It was a complete shambles from start to finish as far as what Tottenham are concerned. And they only have themselves to blame. They only have themselves to blame, Spurs. It's the fans that I feel sorry for. The match-going fans, the fans that spend money on merchandise and all of that kind of stuff and kits every year and things like that. They deserve better than this. They really, really do deserve better than this. Their club has treated them as a business rather than a football club. As long as they're getting money for boxing and Beyonce and whatever else they can fill that stadium with, their club aren't bothered. Their club aren't bothered about them. Their club aren't bothered about success on the pitch. The success on the pitch is secondary in comparison to the entertainment centre that is the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What they can get into that stadium is the primary objective. It's where their money comes from. And the success is secondary to them. The club could not care less about success on the pitch. Last year's Europa League, fantastic. If that happens, cool. But that's just the world we live in with Spurs. The world we live in with Spurs is that they are a club that don't know who they are. And I spoke about this before when it comes to Tottenham and the club being in an identity crisis. Tottenham are a club that wants to be a big player in the English football game, that want to be a big player in European football. They talk like a top 5 club, They talk like a top 5 club, but they don't act like one. They do not act like a top 5 club. A top 5 club does not appoint managers like Igor Tudor as a gamble to remain in the Premier League. Top 5 club doesn't have Maurizio Pochettino on the verge of greatness at Tottenham and just sit by and just let him have the same squad for about 3 years, letting that squad deteriorate, letting that squad go old and stale. A top 5 club doesn't do that. A top 5 club goes all out to make sure that success occurs at that football club. A top 5 club doesn't hire serial winners like Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. And although you can maybe argue that both had passed it by that point, or maybe in Conte's case, he is oddly specific about what and who he wants, they don't just not give them what they want. They don't buy players that don't suit the manager. You don't go and buy Jose kids, because we know that in history tells us Mourinho wants established players. You don't go for about 15 potential managers and hire Nuno Espirito Santo and go, yeah, this was the guy that we wanted all along, to then not really give him a fair chance because you sack him about 7 games into the new season. The club are not serious. The club are incredibly stupid. Incredibly stupid. They act. They talk like they are a top 6 club. They walk, at least off the pitch, like they are a top 6 club with their new stadium and everything. But they don't act. And that is incredibly embarrassing. Incredibly embarrassing for the club. And like I say, if relegation does happen this season, they'll have no one to blame but the club. The fans don't, well, some of the fans at least don't deserve it. But it's on the club. It is on the club for years and years of neglect in favour of their bright, shiny new state-of-the-art stadium taking centre stage. They're an entertainment unit and a business rather than a football club. And being in the Championship, nothing more than the club deserve. Because they are a joke. They are an embarrassment. They're a humiliation. And if I was supporting that football club, I'd be angry and frustrated too. I would be angry and frustrated too. It's not great. It's not great at all as far as what Tottenham Football Club are concerned. And now we look ahead. We look ahead to what is coming up for Spurs. Sean Dyche's name, like I said, has already been mentioned. I think that is the safe choice. I feel like it's the safe choice. I feel like with Dyche at the helm, you can probably get a few points out of your remaining games. I mean, Sunderland at home is going to be very tough. Brighton away. Brighton are coming to some really good form in recent weeks. That's going to be tough. The Wolves game is going to be the massively important game here for Tottenham. That's going to be the massively important game. Wolves could already be down and out by that point. So that's going to be massively important against a Wolves side who will probably be just playing for pride by that point. Aston Villa at Villa Park. That is going to be extremely tough. Tottenham could be helped by the possibility of where Villa might be in the Europa League. Plus, if Villa have, or depending on how the top 5 race is going, if Villa have a bit of a comfortable cushion in the top 5 race, then of course maybe Villa might give Spurs a bit of a helping hand in that regard, because maybe, just maybe, Villa might focus on the Europa League, which might help Spurs out a little bit. Where we are, we're at. Then Leeds at home. That again, another massive game. Leeds aren't exactly safe either, but I would imagine they are probably the safest of the bottom 5. Sorry, bottom 6. Sorry. Chelsea then away from home. If Chelsea continue the way they are doing right now, and Chelsea continue with Liam Rosenior, if you're not a Tottenham fan smelling blood at Stamford Bridge, I know that obviously Chelsea will be thinking the same because it's a local and fierce derby. If Tottenham aren't smelling blood with Liam Rosenior at the helm for the Blues, then this will probably be the best time to play them. You're probably not going to get a better chance of playing them. And then on the final day of the season, they've got Everton at home, which again could be very tough considering what Everton could be playing for this season in terms of maybe Champions League football. So there's a lot there to unpack and to digest with Spurs' run into the end of the season. There's some very tricky games in there, of course there is, but there's some winnable games there, or at least some games where you can maybe pick up some very valuable points in. And I don't know whether or not they'll be able to survive, especially when you consider that West Ham are showing more fight than them right now. And looking at West Ham's games, by the way, West Ham play Wolves to begin with, to begin their run into the end of the season at home. Crystal Palace then away from home. Everton at home. Brentford away from home. Arsenal at home. Newcastle away. And then Leeds on the final day of the season at the London Stadium. So you're looking at it and you're thinking the Wolves game is going to be massively important. There's no reason why West Ham can't get something against Crystal Palace, especially if Palace are safe. And again, Palace have Europa Conference League that maybe they might focus on now, which would be incredible for Oliver Glasner's side. The Everton game, again, it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion with Everton, but you would expect probably Everton to win. But again, it's not out of the realms of possibility for West Ham to get something from that game. Brentford are a little up and down. So again, possible that they get something from Brentford as well. The Arsenal game, I mean, like I say, Arsenal are going for the Premier League title. So, of course, you'd probably expect Arsenal to win that game. But it depends on how the Premier League title race and how Arsenal themselves are looking at that point. Newcastle, again, Newcastle have been a bit up and down this year, but you never know. And then Leeds on the final day. Leeds probably should be safe. So Leeds will probably be playing for pride. West Ham, they might be battling to survive. We shall see, obviously, how that one goes. But it's an interesting run-in for both of those teams. And even though I know that Forest beat Spurs before the international break, I wouldn't still say that Forest are necessarily completely out of the woods yet. I think they are. But of course, until that is genuinely true, then of course it always remains a possibility. I don't think they're completely out of the woods yet, but I think another couple of points in their upcoming games for Forest could very well see them safe and sound for next season. So it's going to be an interesting relegation battle. Spurs obviously are going into it with a new manager, and that new manager could potentially be Sean Dyche. It could also be Roberto De Zerbi, if reports are to be believed, as of yesterday. Sean Dyche is the more tried and tested one, and I feel like he'll be a quicker fix than what De Zerbi is. I feel like his way of playing is quite basic, so I feel like with the way that Spurs, with the squad that Spurs have, I think it'll be easier to drill into them what he wants between now and the end of the season rather than a Roberto De Zerbi. Because De Zerbi has a set way of playing, and it is adventurous, it is attacking, and it will be pleasing on the eye. Don't get me wrong. It'll be very pleasing on the eye for Roberto De Zerbi and for those Spurs fans, right? The problem with De Zerbi's style is that it will take a while to settle in. It will take a while to get ingrained in the players. Now, if he's prepared to go down to the Championship and stay with Spurs, then by all means, do it. Because I feel like De Zerbi's style of play will be very good for Spurs in the long run. If you need to stay in the Premier League for right now, and you fear relegation, which, by the way you've acted, doesn't exactly go hand in hand with your actions, then hire Sean Dyche. Hire Sean Dyche and go, right, if we stay up in the Premier League, we'll keep you to the end of the season. Depending on where we're at, we'll bring in De Zerbi. I feel like something like that may happen because I think for Tottenham to show a bit more ambition and a bit more excitement in what they are doing, De Zerbi is the right call. The problem is that I feel like De Zerbi's style of play will take a while to implement. And what we saw at Brighton, especially at the beginning of his reign, was whilst the idea was there, whilst the ambition to be a better footballing side and a much more attractive footballing side was there, it often led to the team making plenty of mistakes and plenty of individual errors that led to goals being conceded, that led to moments in games not going in their favour. It's one of them weird situations where the right manager, I believe, is there for De Zerbi, in De Zerbi, but I don't know if he is what you need right now. He is what you want, but whether he's what you are needing, I don't know. Maybe if you'd have brought him in when Thomas Frank was sacked, maybe that might have been a different story. Maybe if you brought Sean Dyche in instead of Igor Tudor, maybe things would have got better. Hindsight is lucrative. I get that. But anybody with half a brain could have told you that appointing Igor Tudor was not the right move. It was the strangest of the strangest moves that you could have made at that point. But that's just Tottenham for you. That's just the way that Tottenham have operated these past several years. Strange moves, weird moves, and then talking about things that are never going to happen. It's very, very weird. Big up Marco is in the building. Lovely to have you here, bro. So Spurs think they are too good for Sean Dyche, but they are not. They need him. I find it weird that a club that are battling relegation and have somewhat battled relegation for the past 2 years and 2 seasons think they are too good for Sean Dyche. I want to know based on what logic that is. You are 100% correct, Marco. I want to know on what basis you are believing that you are too good for Sean Dyche. I don't get it. This is a guy that got Everton to be a mid-table club. Burnley, when they first got promoted, they were doing really, really well. Even his reign at Nottingham Forest, I think if they'd have appointed him straight after Nuno, I think he would have had a well. I think if he would have been appointed after Nuno rather than them go through the Postecoglou phase, or even in the summer, so he actually had a full preseason to work with those players. I still think that maybe he would have been better at Forest than what he actually was. I don't get this whole we're better than this situation with Sean Dyche. I really, really don't. It's very strange to me. Very, very strange indeed. I don't get it. Tottenham Hotspur supporter groups have united to voice their fierce opposition to the potential appointment of Roberto De Zerbi as the club's next head coach. The backlash stems primarily from the Italian manager's previous public support of forward Mason Greenwood during their time together at Marseille. Okay, I was about to ask why they would do that, and then you've just explained it there. So fair enough. Look, I 100% get it. I 100% do get it, and in a lot of people's eyes, throughout the rest of his footballing career, a lot of people will still come to the assumption that Mason Greenwood is guilty of what he did. And a lot of people aren't going to change their minds over that. And do I find it personally a bit weird and a bit dodgy the way that things played out in that situation? Yes. I really, really do. Having heard and seen some of the evidence that was brought into the public domain, it's a very delicate, of course, but very strange situation the way that things played out. However, in the eyes of the law, he is technically innocent. Technically. Do I necessarily agree with it personally in the court of public opinion? No. But in the eyes of the law, he is technically innocent. I get the backlash. I get the frustration from a lot of people. And I'm not saying like you should just ignore what he has said to appease your own club, but at the same time, it's a case of Greenwood and his family have moved on. And whether you like it or not, because the courts have not found him guilty, everybody else probably needs to move on as well. And again, not a popular opinion, and I don't personally like it myself, but that's just the way that I feel everything has now moved on, because we are a while away removed from that particular case. De Zerbi is a great manager in terms of his style of play. I feel like Spurs would really enjoy his style of play. It was great. It was great at Brighton. It worked out well at Marseille for a certain amount of time at least. Like I say, the only backlash to De Zerbi is that it will take a while to implement his style of play on this squad, which means that in the meantime, you have to put up with some trial and erroring. You've got to put up with some mistakes that are definitely going to happen. it's going to be a long process. It's going to be a lengthy process, but Spurs have dug themselves into this hole because they've decided, like I say, they decided to talk a big game, but when it comes to actually putting those words into action, they've just not done it. Whether it be failure in transfer windows, whether it be failure in terms of managerial appointments, whether it be failure in terms of their infrastructure at the club, the coaches, the medical staff, the scouts, and whoever else. It's been a complete failure from top to bottom for the past, well, since getting into the Champions League final. I mean, even a little bit, maybe even before that, you could argue that things started to deteriorate there. But it was definitely after Pochettino that Tottenham lost their ways and then started to deteriorate from there. So it's a complete car crash. Rodrigo's back. Lovely to have you here, my friend. Do you think in the long run it can be a good thing for Spurs to relegate, as it will send shockwaves through the entire organization so they can rebuild? But do you trust them to rebuild? This is the thing that I've been going back and forth over. I don't necessarily trust that Spurs would rebuild. Spurs have not managed to rebuild when they were good, or when they were at least challenging for Champions League football after Pochettino. So I don't trust them to rebuild. I can look at a Wolves, I can look at a West Ham, I can look at a Burnley even, and I can look at them, and even maybe Nottingham Forest, and I can go, whichever combination of those three went down, let's say Spurs have taken one spot, but whichever combination of two of those teams that will go down with them next season, I could at least make a strong case as to why they will bounce straight back up again for the following year. I can't do that with Spurs. Spurs are such an unknown right now that I don't see a world in which Spurs are guaranteed to come back into the Premier League for the following season. Even with the Championship announcing that they're going to extend the amount of teams that can qualify for the playoff spots, I still don't see a world in which Spurs are guaranteed to, at the very least, get a playoff spot. I really, really can't. I can't. I see mass amounts of exits in the summer. I see the likes of Van de Ven going, Christian Romero potentially going. There could be exits for the likes of Pape Sarr. There could be exits for maybe a Dominic Solanke potentially. If depending on how his injury's going, there could be exits for the likes of James Maddison's and Dejan Kulusevski's, Pedro Porro's, Vicario, Bergval. Like, there could be some mass exits this summer from Spurs, and I genuinely wouldn't be shocked or surprised if that did happen. And with that comes the potential of them not coming back into the Premier League for the following season. I personally can't see it. I mean, I could see it, but I wouldn't be so sure on it. I wouldn't be convinced. I wouldn't be putting any money on it, put it that way, that Spurs do come back up again. Because I don't know who their manager's going to be. I don't know what their squad's going to look like. At least with Burnley, I can say they've been there and done it. If Scott Parker does stay, then they've got a very good chance of doing it. Their chances alter a little bit if he leaves, but in the past, Burnley have proven that they have the resources and the scouting ability to appoint a manager that will adapt to the Championship and do a very good job in the Championship, because they've done it before with the likes of Vincent Kompany. They've done it before with obviously Scott Parker. So they at least know what they're on about, Burnley. Spurs, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like I say, they couldn't rebuild when they were going for Champions League and Europa League football. They didn't give Conte or Mourinho exactly what they wanted. They didn't really even give Nuno Espirito Santo what he wanted. They definitely didn't give Postecoglou what he wanted when he finished fifth with them. He wanted experienced players. He was giving them all these names. He's even said it on the overlap. And they gave him a few kids and said, go with it with that. It's appalling. It very much is appalling on that front. So to say, do I think that there'll be a big rebuild if they go down and they take a backward step? Unless there's something that I'm missing, I don't know, maybe there is going to be a massive Saudi takeover, which will be easy to conduct in the Championship rather than the Premier League. I don't know. If there is going to be some sort of major monumental takeover, that's the only thing that I can probably say for Spurs is going to improve them. Some sort of Saudi takeover, which, for all intents and purposes, I don't think there's been any news on that. So unless that is going to happen once they go down, I don't know. I don't know. If Spurs don't get relegated, they think they can get away with it and wing it like last season when they finished 17th. The problem with last season was that there were definitely three worse teams worse than Spurs last season. And that's what got Spurs through, because they were the fourth worst team in the Premier League, and there was a considerable distance between themselves and the 18th place team in Leicester. I think there was like a 14-point gap or something, or a 13-point gap between them by the end of the season. Spurs were always going to be safe last season, no matter what. Even though there was talk about relegation, let's be real, Southampton, Leicester, and I can't think of the other team. Southampton, Leicester, and who the hell was it? Ipswich, of course, Ipswich, yes. Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton were always going to be the three worst teams than Spurs. Didn't matter. It didn't. Yes. Thank you, Marco. Appreciate that. They were always the three worst teams. Didn't matter what Spurs did. They were always going to be remaining in the Premier League. No one expected them to finish as low as what they did, granted. But as the season wore on, they were obviously going to be the fourth worst team at the very least. They're dancing with the devil, and if they're not in trouble this season, they're probably going to be in trouble next season. Spurs need to fix up. And there's from what we're seeing and from what we're hearing, there's no evidence to suggest they're going to do that. There's no evidence to suggest they're going to do that. I thought they found a good head coach in Thomas Frank. I know that Thomas Frank was dealt some really bad cards in the hand that he's had this season in terms of injury to some key players. I mean, you on the eve of the season, you basically get James Maddison injured, one of your most creative influencers. You don't have Dejan Kulusevski because he got injured last year and hasn't been seen since. You lose Solanke for a large period of the season. There's also other injuries and other moments in the season. You've still got a donkey at centre back in Christian Romero. Your goalkeeper is flappy Poppadon's hands, Vicario. You've been dealt some really bad cards in that hand. Now, should he have known that going into the job? Some of it, yes. Some of it, no. But at the same time, in saying that, I felt sorry for Thomas Frank. I thought there was a good manager there that could at least drag Spurs to a somewhat respectable finish. Anywhere inside the top 7, top 8. I don't know. But obviously didn't play out like that. They probably should have stuck with Thomas Frank if they were going to go down the Igor Tudor route. I don't understand why they did that. I still think that maybe sticking with Thomas Frank might have been the better of two options in that situation and scenario, or at least wait until a better manager comes along that was available, such as a Sean Dyche or a De Zerbi. Even though I think De Zerbi actually got sacked from Marseille before Spurs appointed Tudor, so he was available then. I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. And like I say, unless there's something that is going on behind the scenes that we're not fully aware of in order to help Spurs get better, I'm not convinced that they will bounce straight back up again. I'm not convinced that they will rebuild very well. This is a team that has, since they got to the Champions League final several years ago, they've struggled. And that is a team that has still managed to compete on a few years for Champions League places, Europa League places. They've even won a Europa League in that time as well. And they still have not managed to build upon all of that and more. So Spurs, as long as they get the Beyonce concerts and as long as they get the boxing fights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, they are not going to treat their club like a football club. They are a business. They are an institution. It is abysmal on the club's part. Just a quick word on Roberto De Zerbi, by the way. Sky Sports are stating that Roberto De Zerbi is open to joining Spurs as head coach immediately. So I think it's a good move for Spurs if that is to happen. I'm just not 100% convinced that he's going to come in and have the sort of hitting the ground running effect that I think Spurs are looking for. So my sort of urge towards all of Spurs fans is, if you do get De Zerbi, don't expect miracles overnight. Don't expect his style of play to be implemented on the team immediately. You're probably going to see it in glimpses and flashes. Hang on to those glimpses and flashes. Hang on to those. Those are the most important things, because you're not going to be a fluid attacking unit straight away, right off the bat. You need time to implement that kind of stuff. And it's not going to happen instantly. It just isn't. Big ol' Abdul is in the building. It says, hi, Captain Fletch in chat. How are you? Like and subscribe. You'll never walk alone. I'm good. Thank you, bro. I hope you're doing well too. And people, if you're still in the building, like I say, and like Abdul says, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. Both of them are always and forever be greatly appreciated from you wonderful, wonderful people. Marco saying that Ipswich was the town last year. Appreciate the help there, bro. We need Klopp back is what Abdul's saying here. I do miss him. I miss him so much. It's unbelievable how much I miss a guy who had a genuine connection with the club. I miss it. Miss it so much. Super Frank Lampard is coming to the Prem next year with Coventry. Be interested to see what Coventry do, to be fair. I'm not expecting them to maybe stay in the division as of right now, but I'm intrigued to know. I'm intrigued to see how they do, and I'm intrigued to see if Frank Lampard has learnt from his previous stays in the Premier League with the likes of Chelsea and Everton. So it'll be interesting to see on both fronts what Coventry can do. Imagine a world in which Coventry are in the Premier League and Spurs aren't. It's bizarre, isn't it? Very, very bizarre. Look, as I say, Spurs for me are an interesting case. An interesting case of neglect and just bizarre decision making. Absolutely bizarre decision making. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. From the top to the bottom, over the past several years, the hiring and firing of managers, the transfer windows that have left people scratching their heads. I don't get it. Their club has been run so poorly. It's unbelievable. From a side that several years ago was finishing very well and truly within the top 4, top 5 situation. They were getting to the latter stages of domestic cups. They got to a final of a Champions League. They were seemingly on the right trajectory. And then everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. Their club just decided not to invest. Their club decided not to go and help Pochettino get over the finish line. So when the inevitable happened, where a drop-off occurred, they got rid of him. They decided to hire a manager in Jose Mourinho, who was long since past it. They decided to hire a manager in Antonio Conte, but not give him exactly what he wanted, which, let's be real here, people. If you need a manager like Conte to succeed, you're going to have to give him exactly what he wants. You hired a manager in Nuno Espirito Santo, who was not your first choice, and neither was he your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, or maybe even 15th choice. You brought in Big Ange. Successful, I guess you could say, on some level, considering he actually won you guys a trophy. But the football that was being played after the first 10 games of his reign as manager died a death. You were so open to play against that you inevitably had to sack him. It's a joke. The club is a joke. The club is ridiculous. The club is insanity of the highest level in a footballing sense. Like I say, how as a football club you can go from being so close to competing for a title, so close to a Champions League trophy, and getting to the latter stages of domestic competitions and then die a death the way that they have done by gross negligence in terms of decision making is unbelievable. The drop off is so severe. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. It's phenomenal viewing. I really, really wish we got the All or Nothing documentary from these past few years, rather than the Mourinho one. Sorry, I really wish we got that All or Nothing documentary these past few years. Does everyone remember that, by the way, the All or Nothing documentary? Made for great TV. Great TV. Sorry, guys. Just sorting this out. Save. There you go. Right. That's changed. Just a quick update on the De Zerbi situation from Fabrizio Romano. He says that talks between Roberto De Zerbi and Tottenham continue as revealed yesterday. Just on what Romano said that Tottenham are pushing, trying to get a green light from Roberto De Zerbi for immediate appointment, always been a top target for summer, but Tottenham insist to make it happen now as talks are ongoing. Spurs see De Zerbi as the ideal candidate for long term. That is what Romano has stated yesterday. And again, it goes hand in hand with what Sky Sports revealed as well. So people backing up the stories and everything. Look, De Zerbi's a good appointment. De Zerbi's the right appointment, I think, because at the end of the day, Spurs just want to play good football. Spurs just want to play good football. Do I think he's going to be successful in terms of winning things? No. Do I think that Tottenham will give it a bigger fight than what they are doing right now? Yeah. Play with a bit more fight, a bit more passion, a bit more determination. And again, I don't think it's going to be an instant hit. I don't think it's going to be an overnight success thing with De Zerbi. I especially can't see the likes of Christian Romero working out under this manager. But what I can see is the possibility that with some of these young players that Spurs have in their team, they could play some really good stuff. They could play some really good football. I think it will mainly matter on whether or not they remain in the Premier League. I just don't know. I'm just not 100% convinced that they're going to remain in the Premier League. I think they could just by the skin of their teeth, especially if West Ham drop off again. But West Ham, as we've said, have probably got the slightly easier fixture list to get points out of rather than a Spurs. And that's where I'm looking at and going, I fear for Spurs. I fear for Spurs in that regard. And the fact of the matter is that Spurs could have just saved themselves the trouble. If Spurs really did want De Zerbi, why didn't they get him when they sacked Thomas Frank? It was available. It was right there. It made a lot of sense. Why didn't they just get in there and then? Why did they have to roll the dice and take a stupid gamble, an unnecessary gamble on Igor friggin' Tudor? Why? I think De Zerbi is a good pick for Spurs. I actually mentioned De Zerbi when they sacked Thomas Frank. I said that De Zerbi would be a good choice in the long run. Not an overnight success, but a good choice in the long run. But again, you have to give him exactly what he wants. There's no point bringing in players that are not going to suit his style just because they're on the cheap. Which, looking back, maybe why they appointed Igor Tudor in the first place. Maybe it was financially, maybe they got a bit arrogant and ignorant that maybe they would stay up anyway. Maybe they got ignorant that maybe, oh, we'll survive because we're the fourth worst team at the very least in the Premier League. We'll survive again. And then they are in serious hot water. And now they're panicking. They're panicking Skywalker. Maybe that's the case. Madness. It really, really is. But it does look like Spurs are going to be moving for De Zerbi. I think it's a good move on Spurs' account. Would love to know what you guys are thinking and feeling about the possibility and potential of Roberto De Zerbi as the next Spurs head coach. And does that improve their chances of staying up this year? Is that going to be the case for Spurs going forward under De Zerbi? Or should they have gone for someone a bit more tried and tested like a Sean Dyche? Let me know in the chat. Sorry, just reading through some of the things that people are saying about Igor Tudor and about De Zerbi here. DiMarzio is saying that Tottenham have offered guarantees to build a strong squad and competitive team for the coming seasons for Roberto De Zerbi. Where have we heard that before? Where have we heard that before? Every other manager, I believe, that Spurs have hired. Every other manager that Spurs have hired, I believe we've heard that before. Everyone's seemingly on the Fabrizio Romano update as well. Does seem as though it is going to be De Zerbi. As much as I would love it to be someone like Sam Allardyce, which would be funny. Yeah, I don't know about this. I don't know about the appointment, to be honest. Like I say, I think in the long run it could work out. I think like in the long run it really could work out. Spurs, De Zerbi playing some nice, attractive football, not really challenging for anything major, but playing some good football, making it into Europe of some kind. Fine. I feel like that could be the ceiling for Spurs under De Zerbi. At least this might be the guy to maybe lay the foundations for someone to come in after him and maybe take forward. The problem that I'm having is that I don't know if this is the guy to keep them up for this season. I don't know. I really, really am struggling with it because play some good football, no doubt about it. Said that, repeated it time and time again. I'm just not entirely convinced that it will be an instant success. It will hit the ground running. It's going to be something that is going to be there for Spurs going forward, in which they find some sort of level of triumphing with or winning games. I see it as being a bit of a hindrance. I see it as being a bit of trial and error. I see it being a bit of, what's what I'm looking for here? Teething problems. Individual errors are going to occur. Problems are going to arise right off the bat. And you're going to be left with a Spurs fan base that are going to be impatient and worried. And none of this will be on De Zerbi. In a similar way that none of it is really on Igor Tudor, to be honest. You can maybe argue that Tudor's management style was cold. His management style was wrong in terms of maybe how standoffish he seemed, especially in that Champions League game against Atletico. To hang his goalkeeper out to dry like that and not even like comfort him when he came off the pitch or anything, or any of his players when they were substituted, I think was completely and utterly wrong. But at the same time, in saying that, your club should have known what kind of manager they were bringing in. And if that was the case, and if that's the manager they've gone for, you can't really blame Tudor for being that type of manager when that's just who he is. You blame the club for not doing their due diligence on the guy. And for appointing someone like that, that was never going to help this fragile, delicate team in this current situation. You blame the club. I feel like De Zerbi is more hands-on. De Zerbi is more comforting in that regard. But his style of play will take some time to get used to. And again, it's a different style of play. Different style of play to what Spurs are somewhat used to this season. You went from Ange to Thomas Frank. You've gone from Thomas Frank to whatever the hell Igor Tudor attempted to do, which I'm still trying to work out even to this day, even though he'd been sacked over 24 or just under 24 hours ago. And now you're going to a different style in De Zerbi. So again, you're going from one extreme to the other, to another, to another, to another. It's crazy to me. It really, really is crazy to me. De Zerbi to Spurs. Long run, yes. Short term, massive risk again. Massive, massive risk again. But hey, if you've already taken a massive risk on Tudor, then what have you got really left to lose? What have you really got left to lose? Other than your Premier League status, which you've been playing and dancing with the devil and playing with fire for God knows how long. So what's one more risk in a seemingly one day inevitable world that Spurs get relegated? I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting end to the season. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Just want to have a look at something here. Let me do it. Yeah, I'll have a look at something. Sorry. So yeah, De Zerbi, Igor Tudor out, De Zerbi in potentially at Spurs. Look, the Tudor experiment clearly didn't work, and I don't think that is to the shock and surprise of many people, if not anyone. The Zerbi coming in. I like the move in the long term. In the short term, I don't know if Spurs fans or even the club are going to have the patience with him. I know that Spurs claim he's long term, but I think in this situation, they're desperate to get anybody right now. So I'm sure that they'll be dropping a lot of crazy promises. I'm sure they'll be saying all the right things to kind of sweet talk and butter him up in order for him to be open and willing to come to Spurs no matter what happens this season. Like I say, I'm of the impression that this will be a good long-term appointment, but for the short term, it could be a little rough going forward. Not perfect. And with the fixture lists of both Spurs and West Ham coming up, it doesn't look good for Spurs, in all honesty. Look, I can't wait to see what happens in the relegation battle. I'm intrigued with both of those clubs in particular. I'm not ruling out Forest completely, but I do think they are more safe than anything. Big up to each and every single one of you for being here. Do me a massive favor, people. Smash a like on the video and subscribe if you are new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated from you all. Thank you to everybody that's contributed in the chat today. Big up to each and every single one of you for doing so. Love that you've been here and you've taken time out of your busy schedules to hear the ramblings of this guy. Other than that, people, again, thank you all so much for watching and for listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks live stream, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll speak to you all again very, very soon. Peace.